Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's story is erupting right out of Europe, where Italy has become the latest flashpoint in the global storm over Gaza. Across cities from Rome to Milan, Naples to Turin, ordinary Italians have poured into the streets in a display of defiance, solidarity, and outrage. What began as small protests has swelled into a massive nationwide strike, shaking the political landscape of Italy and sending shockwaves across Europe. This is not just a protest. It is a fiery stand, a thunderous declaration that Italy will not remain silent as Gaza burns. To understand the magnitude of what is unfolding, we must first trace the roots. Italy has always been a land of passion, of political fire, of voices raised against injustice. The memory of anti-war marches during the Iraq invasion, the solidarity movements of the Cold War era, and the long history of leftist, workers, and student struggles live deeply in the Italian spirit. So when images of Gaza, destroyed homes, hospitals in ruins, children trapped under rubble, filled television screens and social media feeds, it lit a flame across the Italian population. Within days, unions, student groups, civil society organizations, and even members of religious institutions began organizing. And what started as rallies outside embassies soon transformed into something much bigger, a national strike. On the morning of the strike, Italian transportation networks ground to a halt. Trains delayed, buses suspended, airports partially paralyzed. The flow of the nation's daily life suddenly slowed down. Workers from ports in Genoa and Naples walked off their shifts, declaring that they would not contribute to the circulation of goods while Gaza remained under siege. Teachers in schools, professors in universities, and even doctors in some hospitals staged symbolic walkouts, carrying banners that read, "Peace for Gaza, justice for Palestine." In the industrial heartland of northern Italy, factories echoed, not with machines, but with chants of solidarity. From Fiat workers to dock workers, from bakers to delivery riders, Italians in countless professions stood united in protest. The scenes in Rome were electrifying. Thousands gathered in Piazza Venezia, their voices booming as they waved Palestinian flags high into the autumn sky. The Colosseum, that ancient symbol of imperial might, stood as a silent witness while chants of "Stop the War" and "Free Gaza" reverberated through the streets. In Milan, demonstrators marched from the Duomo Cathedral to the central station, their ranks swelling with students who had left their classrooms to join strike. Red flares and smoke filled the air, reminiscent of football stadiums, but this time the passion was not for sport. It was for justice, for life, for Gaza. In Naples, protesters draped massive banners across historic buildings, demanding that Italy's government sever military and trade ties with Israel until the assault on Gaza ends. One of the most striking moments came when dock workers in the port city of Genoa physically blocked the loading of cargo suspected to contain weapons bound for Israel. With helmets on and arms locked, they declared, "Not in our name, not with our labor." Their act was both symbolic and practical, a refusal to let Italian ports be used as channels for war. Similar actions were reported in Livorno, where workers refused to handle military equipment. These moves were not just protest. They were direct acts of resistance, and they captured headlines across Europe. Now let's talk about the political impact. The Italian government, led by Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, has walked a tightrope on the Israel-Palestine issue. As a right-wing leader, Meloni has leaned heavily towards supporting Israel, citing the fight against terrorism and Italy's alliances with the United States and NATO. But the eruption of protests has placed her administration under immense pressure. Opposition parties, particularly from the left, have seized on the strikes to challenge the government's foreign policy. Members of parliament have openly criticized Italy's silence on the humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza, arguing that neutrality in the face of massacre is complicity. Meloni's government is now facing a growing rift between maintaining Western alliances and responding to the anger of its own citizens. Internationally, the strike has not gone unnoticed. Across Europe, activists from France, Spain, Belgium, and Germany have praised Italy's mobilization as a model. Social media is ablaze with images of Italian streets filled with Palestinian flags, often accompanied by hashtags calling for global general strikes. For many watching, Italy's action is a reminder of the powerful role that workers' movements and public demonstrations can play in shaping foreign policy. Gaza may be thousands of kilometers away, but in Italy, people feel the moral urgency as if it were unfolding next door. But what makes this Italian uprising particularly potent is the diversity of voices joining together. It's not just leftists or longtime pro-Palestinian activists. It's students, trade unionists, Catholic priests, migrant communities, artists, academics, and everyday families. Churches in southern Italy have held vigils for Gaza, ringing their bells in solidarity. Universities have organized teach-ins and debates, connecting the history of Italian anti-fascist resistance with the Palestinian struggle. Migrants from North Africa and the Middle East living in Italy have joined arms with native Italians, showing that solidarity transcends borders and backgrounds. For a nation often divided by politics, this moment has created a rare unity of purpose. Let's not forget the human element here. Many Italians see echoes of their own history in Gaza's plight. Italy has known war, bombings, and foreign occupation. The stories of grandmothers who lived through World War II are not distant memories. They are part of living family histories. So when Italians see apartment blocks in Gaza reduced to rubble, or children huddling in fear as bombs fall, it stirs something deeply human, deeply personal. That empathy has transformed into action, fueling a strike that is more than just political. It is emotional, moral, even spiritual. Of course, not everyone supports the strike. Right-wing commentators have accused the protesters of being one-sided, of ignoring Israeli civilian suffering, of turning a blind eye to Hamas. Government ministers have warned that the strikes damage Italy's economy and international reputation. Some media outlets aligned with pro-Israel interests have tried to downplay the protests, calling them fringe or manipulated. But the sheer scale of participation makes it impossible to dismiss. When entire sectors of society, from transport to education to industry, grind to a halt, the message is undeniable. This is not a fringe movement. It is a national outcry. So what comes next? Italian unions have hinted at escalating actions if the government continues to ignore their demands. Student groups are planning sit-ins at universities, linking the Gaza issue to broader critiques of militarism and imperialism. Some activists are calling for Italy to cut all arms sales to Israel and to recognize Palestine as a sovereign state. Others want Italy to lead the European Union toward a more balanced approach, one that centers human rights rather than geopolitics. Whether these demands will be met remains uncertain, but the pressure is building, and Meloni's government will not be able to simply sweep it under the rug. There is also a cultural dimension. Italian filmmakers, musicians, and writers are beginning to add their voices. Prominent authors have signed open letters demanding an end to the bombing of Gaza. Bands and artists have dedicated performances to Palestinian victims. In Italian cinema, where political expression often thrives, documentaries and short films about Gaza are already being screened at solidarity events. This cultural wave ensures that the issue will remain alive in the Italian imagination long after the strike's end. The global implications are huge. Italy is a member of both NATO and the European Union. If internal dissent continues to grow, it could influence broader European debates on Israel and Palestine. Imagine if the strike movement spreads to France, to Spain, to Germany. A continental wave of labor strikes in support of Gaza would mark a historic turning point, challenging the alignment of Western governments with Israel and forcing them to confront their complicity. Italy, with its history of strong unions and passionate civil society, may just be the spark that lights that fire. In conclusion, what we are witnessing is extraordinary. Italy, a nation with deep scars from its own history of war, has erupted in a massive strike, shaking its government and inspiring movements across Europe. It is a fiery stand for Gaza, a refusal to remain silent in the face of destruction. From dock workers in Genoa to students in Milan, From priests in Naples to families in Rome, the Italian people are declaring, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Their strike is not just about Gaza. It is about humanity, about conscience, about the power of ordinary people to confront extraordinary violence. This moment may well be remembered as a turning point, not only in Italy's political life, but in the global movement for Palestinian freedom. The question now is whether other nations will follow Italy's example, and whether governments will listen to the voices of their people. One thing is certain. The streets of Italy have spoken, and their echo will not fade easily. The world is watching, and Gaza is not alone.